Now I'm dreading talking about today because it's just so fucking loony. One of the radical liberal conspiracy theories going around the internet, around the social justice community, some of Jill Stein supporters I talked to believe the same thing, believe that we live in a white supremacy. You heard me right. In 2016, they firmly, fervently believe that the United States of America lives in a white supremacy. Now, for the vast majority of people across all races, that just comes as laughable. I mean, I would venture to guess if you took a poll and asked, the vast majority of Americans would believe that we do not live in a white supremacy. They would believe that racism is still a problem in this country, which it is. Totally separate issues. I fully agree that racism is a problem with this country on all sides. Every race is suffering from racism from other races in some certain ways in each specific situation. There is no race that every single one of its members just magically avoids the taint of racism. Now, social justice warriors will say that white people are that class. Anyway, we're venturing away from the subject. They believe we live in a white supremacy. Now, I've talked with some of these radical liberals. They've given me lots of crackpot theories as to why. Their excuses are, one of them is that we gave money to Nazis in Ukraine, therefore that makes us a white supremacy. First of all, I don't know for sure if all of the revolutionaries in Ukraine were Nazis. I don't know. There's so much information, so much propaganda coming from both the US and Russia that I cannot fully determine if the revolutionaries in Ukraine had Nazi ties. But that isn't even the point. That's a whole separate issue for a whole nother time. But this person thinks that because a nation gives money to another nation, that the nation that gives money automatically gets all of the qualities and aspects of that group it gave money to. That's just absolutely preposterous. That is such a quantum leap in logic. It makes absolutely no sense. That's like saying an African nation giving money to a Hispanic nation, for example, and that means that that African nation somehow becomes an Hispanic nation. I mean, so how I just proved this theory was I said, okay, let's say, for all intents and purposes, for sake of argument, that the US did in fact give neo-Nazis money in Ukraine during the revolution in 2014, which led to the Russian invasion of Crimea, whatever. Let's hypothetically say they were real neo-Nazis and we gave them money. So you're saying that any nation that gives money to another nation, they absorb all of the political aspects, let's say, of that nation. So using that logic, Palestine and Nazi Germany in the 1930s were in alliance. They gave each other whole bunches of diplomatic information, political information, economic ties, blah, blah, blah. So I asked him, do you think that Palestine in the 1930s was a white supremacy? Because using your same logic, since Palestine gave money to Hitler, that means that Palestine, this is before the Israeli invasion in 1948, this is when the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem ruled Palestine in Arab, when Palestine was more than 90% Arab. I'm saying, in Palestine with those qualities, is that a white supremacy? And he's like, yes. I had to beat it out of him because he knew the answer was wrong. He didn't want to admit it. But I grilled him on it for a while. He was like, yep, Palestine was a white supremacy in the 1930s. And I'm just like, holy fucking shit. The ludicrous distance that radicals in general, but this radical liberal will go to in order to support their narrative is absolutely, completely fucking retarded. They will say whatever it takes to support their narrative, even if it means saying that Palestine, 90% Arab, was a white supremacy. It just boggles my mind how fucking stupid these people are. And how they can't see it. They think they're totally justified. They think they're standing up for the little guy in calling the US a white supremacy. How does a nation that has a half-black president a white supremacy? Have all these minorities in government, in top CEOs, running huge companies. You know, just in every seat of economic, political, and military power, there are minorities. And they still say the U.S. is a white supremacist. Just absolutely fucking absurd. And a growing amount of people, as the liberals become more radical and they go farther and farther to the left, just the same as Republicans are to the right, don't get me wrong. I'm just talking about liberals in this specific instance because this is a liberal conspiracy theory. More and more liberals are accepting the fact that we live in a white supremacy. It's just so fucking scary to listen to these people say with utmost conviction when I'm sitting there, a student of history and global affairs, and saying, no, you people are fucking retarded. You want to make an issue out of nothing. You want to take individual cases of racism, individual companies, individual managers, individual people in power in certain situations being racist, and you want to call that a governance based on white supremacy. Absolutely fucking retarded. The two had nothing to do with each other. South Africa, before it was not an apartheid state, that is an instance of white supremacy. Rhodesia, which now is part of Zimbabwe, it got broken up into a bunch of other countries. But the country of Rhodesia in Africa, that was a white supremacy. Israel is a supremacy, not really a white supremacy because there are a lot of tan Jews. A Jewish supremacy, let's say that. Those are instances of actual white supremacy or supremacist state, okay? Where there is legal differences between a Jew and an Arab. There are different courts, there are different judicial systems, there are different sentences held down depending if you are an Arab or a Jew. If you're an Arab, you come to the exact same side as a Jew in Israel or in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, you will get different sentences on the exact same crime, exact same circumstances. You know, a Jewish kid throws a rock at a car, he might get like community service or something. An Arab kid throws a rock at a car, and he's considered a Palestinian terrorist, and he gets thrown in 20 years in jail without access to his family or a lawyer. You know, it's like shit like that, where kids are put through military tribunal trials without access to a lawyer or family. A Jewish kid will never go through that if he throws a rock at a car. And Jewish kids have thrown rock at cars over the years. That is an instance of a supremacist state. It's so insulting to the victims of supremacist state to say that in this day and age, the U.S. is a white supremacy. They think that the U.S. will go to any amount to preserve this white supremacist state or to make it look like not a white supremacist state, to the fact that millions upon millions of white Americans will vote for a half-black president and put him in the office. The white supremacist state will allow that in order to keep the veil, the shroud, the illusion of a white supremacy. And that's just completely fucking laughable. Can you imagine South Africa and its apartheid regime allowing a black president? Just the absurdity that they can sit there straight face and say the face of the white supremacy is a half black man. Just absolutely hilarious. Fucking hilarious. I am very critical of the government, in case you haven't noticed on my videos. I will take any evidence that delegitimizes the government and uses ammunition to say this is why the government is illegitimate. So you think, with my viewpoint, that I would leap at the fact that the U.S. is a white supremacist state. I would love that to be the case so I can use that against the government. To say this is a reason why it's not legitimate. So I have every reason, every rational incentive to find evidence of a white supremacist state here. But I've looked, and there's nothing. The examples they give are fucking retarded and have nothing to do with a government whose governing policy is based on skin. It's just nothing they give me. The fact that the U.S. give money to Nazis in Ukraine? No, that doesn't make it a white supremacy. The fact that there's some housing discrimination going on here and there? No, not evidence that the government is controlling or telling the housing companies to do that. Now, are there some racist landowners or apartment owners that discriminate against black people? You fucking bet they are. There are also black people who own apartments who are racist towards white and Asians. Like, every combination you can think of exists in this country because our country is that diverse, and bigoted and racism exists across the races, across all boards. This country has a huge problem with racism. And to think that it's all one-sided, that the only people being oppressed are minorities, and the only people that are doing the oppressing is white people, is just completely ignoring the facts. They will cite studies of housing discrimination against minorities, but report that as a half-truth and conveniently leave out the fact that whites were also discriminated against by minorities who own apartments. They conveniently leave that fact out, so technically they're not lying, they're just saying a half-truth and just not omitting the other parts of the case. And it's like, no, when I see this study and see that all races have been discriminated against, that supports my worldview that all people of all races are racist in this country. And it's not just one-sided. I have been personally discriminated against because of the color of my skin by black people. And you do not fucking tell me that that's not racism. They are judging by the color of my skin. That is racism. Clear in fact, it can be perpetrated by an individual, it can be perpetrated by a group, it can be perpetrated by an organization, a government, any level of group, I guess, if you want to call it. They also point to the police killing of black people as an example of white supremacy. That's so fucking insulting. They don't look at the data. Like I said before, more than 700 white people have been shot by police, and only 180 black people have been shot by police this year, and lots of those shootings of black people were justified. So we're talking about less than 100 black people in the entire fucking country have been killed by the police in unjust circumstances. Now, do you think that if the U.S. was really a white supremacy, the police force would be so incompetent and so inept as to only kill 100, let's just say it's 120 out of 180 who are unjustified? That's really being liberal. That's just really giving the benefit of the doubt to the victims. Do you really think that with all of the guns and all the officers out on the streets, they will only kill 120 black people in a year? That a white supremacist police force will only kill that few? Holy fucking shit, no! They will be killing thousands in the streets! The stats will be stacked so high, hardly any white people will get killed by police because the police are white supremacy and they believe white people are better than everyone else. They would hardly shoot any white people and they would shoot thousands upon thousands of black people. When you look at the fucking data and ignore the liberal spin, the liberal half-truths that the fucking media presents to you, you would see that white people are shot way more than black people. And if you look at percentage-wise, black people only shot, I think it's 2.5 times more percentage-wise than white people. But when you take justified shootings in there, that percentage is basically canceled out. It might be like 0.2%, 0.3% more, but are you really telling me that that insignificant percentage point is evidence of white supremacy? You have got to be fucking kidding me. They just pull out the weakest, stupidest arguments, and you look at the data, it just completely disproves what they're saying. In conclusion, I firmly believe that the U.S. is not a white supremacist state because I have seen no evidence to suggest that. Every time they try to convince me, their data is just, and their reasons are just the most paltry, pathetic excuses I've ever fucking seen. If you want to know what a white supremacist country acts like, how its courts are set up, how its society is set up, look at Rhodesia. Look at South Africa when it was in apartheid regime. Look at Israel. Now, that is how a supremacist state is run. We are nothing like that. Do we have racists in this country? You fucking betcha. I encounter almost every single day when I look at the comments of a fucking news article and they're just racist everywhere. Rampant racism. There is no white person that says all racism is over because Obama became president. That is just liberals simplifying the argument and using it as a straw man. No one says that. What we're saying is the governing body, the governing body in this country is so fucking incompetent and so fucking retarded that you honestly think that they can maintain a white supremacy so well that it can even hide itself from someone like me who has every rational incentive to look for a white supremacist state in this country. Do you think the government's smarter than me? Don't insult my intelligence. federal government is made up of a bunch of fucking retards. Yeah, there's some smart people here and there, but it is hemmed by inefficiency, by lazy bureaucrats, by wasteful spending, by just complete fucking retards who have no idea what the fuck they're doing. You know, because it's so hard to fire a federal employee. So to think that they are so good as to make this white supremacy state that by every inch of data and looking at its society, its legal system, whatever, it's not, I'm supposed to take the liberals' word for it. So even though I see no evidence and have every rational incentive to see a white supremacist state, I'm supposed to take these radical nut jobs who think that Palestine was a white supremacist state in 1930. I'm supposed to take their word for it.